Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wine and Wisdom. I'm Thomas Hoang, and you're listening to the TL podcast, where knowledge is shared and no one takes themselves too seriously. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wine and Wisdom. I'm Thomas Hoang, and you're listening to the TL podcast, where knowledge is shared and no one takes themselves too seriously.
Good afternoon. How is everybody?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good, thank you.
It is afternoon, isn't it? What day of the week is it?
Always Thursday.
Always Thursday, baby.
Always
Right.
thirsty. Always thirsty.
Thirsty Thursday. I was pretty thirsty yesterday too, actually, but it doesn't rhyme with Wednesday. So,
Wet your whistle Wednesday.
oh, there you go. I didn't do it for no reason. All right, we continue with Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, an antidote to chaos. I don't know about you guys, but it's causing me some chaos trying to get through it. Chapter 4 this week. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. What do we reckon?
Oh, well, he's right, but it's try to understand what he's been writing. That's something I'm leaving it to Chris, man.
Chris just went very quiet.
I did.
So obviously the overall theme is something that we've spoken about before and is pretty easy to understand. With everything that's going on in the world today and social media especially, too many people are comparing themselves to others and then feeling bad about their own lives because they're not living up to the perceived life of other people. It's not the life they're actually living, it's what they perceive their life to be. So that in itself is pretty easy to understand, but the 46 pages that he delved into it with, and Bibles and gods and all different sort of stuff, took it down a few too many layers for me. I mean, Megs, this isn't going to offer anything, so.
I found it a hard chapter to read. I enjoyed it. I felt like there was so many like one-liners and like just so many pieces of just like advice in it that it was just so like overwhelming to kind of take in. It almost reminded me a little bit of Wayne Bennett's book, how it was just one-liner after one-liner after one-liner, and it was an interesting read because there was lots of stuff in it that I took away from it, but
We're all using very general terms without going into specifics.
I love the term interesting.
Really
I usually use that term.
the first line that I wrote down, like my first notes that I wrote down, and I'm like, I can't even understand what I've written, like and why I wrote it.
I read it in two sections, and after I finished the second half of it, I went back to go back over the first section and look at what I'd highlighted. I'm like, why did I highlight that?
Yeah.
What does that mean? What do you?
Let's start from the beginning, right? So
Thomas, put some intelligence into the conversation, will you?
Not wrong.
let me reread the title of the rule.
Hey, I did my bit.
I think let's start from the beginning. The beginning, what he's saying is, everyone is unique. So there's nobody else in equal ability or outcome, or even close to being a perfect picture of you. So if it is true, then it doesn't make sense to compare. I mean, you can compare two Ferraris or two BMW 735 series if you can, but you can't compare a Ferrari and a BMW. It's what he's trying to say. But still, what he's also trying to say in the beginning is we all have that internal voice that just urges us to make that comparison. And you're absolutely right. With social media and with what's happening for the moment, it's actually being magnified. This comparison, this need to compare, is being magnified. And you have a look at the amount of people in companies who only want to work and compare everyone, not against each other, each person's performance, but against each other. So even in the way that companies and the way the society is working for the moment, there is nothing that really trains an individual to dig for what's best in him. Instead, are you better than the guy who works next to you?
Yeah. I think we all said it before about social media. We neglect to remember what we're seeing on social media is the highlight reel. We don't see what's on the cutting room floor of people's lives. They don't show you the shit that's on social media. They only show you the good. And that's what a lot of people are comparing themselves to and say, oh, my life's not that good and I don't drive that car and so forth. It's terrible. Look at yourself. And we're reading a similar book that's got a similar chapter. Just be a little bit better today than you were yesterday. Just do something a little bit better today than you did yesterday. Maybe, actually get on the treadmill for a change and take a 10-minute walk and maybe 15 minutes tomorrow and so forth. It doesn't have to be a huge change, but compare yourself to yourself. The other thing I think I liked was we need to understand, we need to work on our strengths and understand we're all different. And as you said it before, we've got, staff members and each one of them are going to have their strengths and their weaknesses regardless. We have to recognize that and sort of help them to see it in themselves to improve.
It talked about in the bit that Thomas was just talking about, it talked about like being self-conscious, and it said that there was so many different ways that basically that we judge ourselves and judge others and stuff like that. And then it said, how then can the voice of critical self-consciousness be stilled? And that line got me because I thought it's so true. Like people's minds are just always, and with social media, the way that social media is actually built is like a poker machine. So it's to constantly stimulate people's minds and look for that win and look for more and, trying to basically get them to spend more time on that site. And I thought, what a line, because your head, like people's heads are so busy and they've got so much coming into them, but how are they filtering that information? What are they doing with it? And then what's the thought process for people to realize what part of it, like to actually stop and think about what's improving them, what should be better for them, not, well, what have they got that I haven't? Like it's up to people's then, inner ability to be able to control that, not external sources like social media and other things.
I think we're getting further away from the ability to do that with the more social media, whether it's, there's so many different avenues, whether it's, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it may be. There's so many different avenues and it's in our face all the time that I think we're losing that ability to have that internal reflection and understand that next.
And they're all linking. Every other app that you've got, like it all links. So we've just started a thing with the team, like a walking thing for cancer, and it all links to socials. So everything's just pulling you back there and it's wanting to drag you back there to promote it on socials or, share it on socials or link your login with your social login. Like it's becoming this massive beast. It already is a massive beast, but it's just growing.
All encompassing.
Yeah, but what worries me, you're talking about you need to have that consciousness, but it's crazy the amount of people and the amount of business and big business that does not really try and look for that road where you can promote the best in people. They all seem to flock and follow, They all seem to go, all right, well, this is what social media want us to do. This is where we should be going. And no wonder you go into that, never-ending wheel. And it will keep on spinning bigger and bigger because social media, let's put it this way, we spoke about it in one of our podcasts quite a while ago, where since the rise of social media, we've never had that much in terms of suicide, with teenagers. It's actually doubled in the last 10 years. And that's a crazy bit. And all of that, why? Because They're all comparing themselves between BMWs and Ferraris.
More than just a rise, it's actually something like 10 or 15 fold, especially teenage girls, the suicide since Facebook started. They can track the years and track the data, and it's crazy. He talks, I like that he brings it back to, puts a bit of an accountability on it, that it's a you problem, not a they problem. If you're not feeling adequate, then that's on you. It's not on the world being a shit place to be in. It's about how you feel about the world. And then he tries to give, in a very, very convoluted roundabout way, some actions to take to try and overcome that, which is first working out what you want and trying to understand whether you really want what those other people have, or is it something else that you're searching for. I like
No, I think that you need to be searching who you are first, Cameron. Not what you want. I think it's who you are. A lot of us don't even take that kind of snapshot of who they are.
He starts and works backwards, doesn't he? He starts at what you want and then brings it all the way back to starting with find out who you are. And that's sort of got to be analysed each day, which is comparing yourself to yesterday.
And I feel for the kids, because sometimes I sit down and I realize I, myself, only came to the realization of who I am not so long ago. So I like to tell my kids that I'm very, very late blossomer. But you
can't have been happy with what you found.
Sorry?
You can't have been happy with what you found.
No, that's why I don't look at you all the time, But the best thing to do is to really take that time and reflect. I like the line when he says, before you can articulate your own standards of value, you must see yourself as a stranger. Then you must get to know yourself. It's funny, why? Because quite often when we meet a stranger, we seem to know everything about the stranger. We only have to spend about 2 minutes with someone we've never met, and somehow we can just tell the world everything about them. So what if we just turn that around and having a look at us as if we were the stranger? I love that line.
Yeah. So I've just lost my thoughts. That's a common occurrence.
I think we often look at it very superficially as well, and we don't stop and like you're trying to get at, Thomas, we don't look at it a lot deeper than just the job, the car, the holiday, wife and 2 kids, 2 wives and a kid, 2 kids, 2 kids and a wife.
Too long
wrong country.
When in lockdown.
So for myself personally, over the last 3-4 months, it's been just sitting back and analysing when I get upset about something, or when a hidden players get triggered. Why am I feeling that way? What's triggered it? So next time it happens, I go, hang on a second. Okay, I'm doing that because of this. It doesn't take a lot of time. I don't think we are that complex of a human being. If you've got any sort of intelligence, I don't think we're really that complex. I think it just needs a little bit of education to stop, really think about what's happened and go, yep, okay. And the next time it comes up, you're fairly well warned. You've got that scar tissue already there to say, okay, hang on, we know why this is going to happen. We don't have to react like.
But sometimes it's difficult also to think, because we all live in that illusion that whatever we think is reality. So if I think that I'm this much of myself, that's reality. Other people not being this way, suddenly they don't see reality. It's an amazing thing. And then we never get to understand that it is us who living the illusion.
Absolutely.
Perception is reality. He talks, Chris, he actually says in there about how complex we are. Sorry to contradict what you were just saying, but he sort of tries to take the pressure off people being able to find out who they are straight away. He talks about, you might think you know who you are, but you don't really, because of how complex we are as humans. He has a line a bit later in the chapter about how complex we are, but we can't set the timer on the microwave. But it is, look, perception is reality. So whatever you think you see, that is your reality. And every one of us here has a different reality based on what we see. But we also can't, it isn't that simple to work out who you are, because there's so many internal and external factors forming your views. that it really does take a lot of discipline and courage. He talks about courage and how easy it is to stay in pain and to never want to know who you are, but in case you find out something you don't like or something that's hard work.
Yeah.
I like the theory he has about when you think you know what you want, it blinds you to every other opportunity in the world, and how some people never get where they really want to be. One, because they don't really know what they want, but two, because they're aiming at the wrong thing. Everything else is blocked out and other opportunities don't present themselves. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people locked in a 9-to-5 job, or who may work the same career. I know it doesn't happen much now, but people working the same job for 30 years and thinking there's nothing else to do. That's because they're blinded by the perceived lack of opportunities elsewhere.
He talked about success and failure, and he stayed on it for a little while, but I think for me it brought it back to the fact of how like impatient we are, and how we're seeking things so much quicker than what previous generations have because of the technology that we've got available and things like that. But it went on to say that you might be winning, but you're not necessarily growing. He said, should victory in the present always take precedence over trajectory across time? And I think that's becoming so much more relevant these days because we are so impatient. We're seeking these quick wins and these quick results. And if we're not getting them, we're judging ourselves that we've failed, or people are judging themselves that they've failed because they're not feeling that those minute wins along the way. They're not looking for that long game, maybe because they are scared of what it presents or what it doesn't present. But I had a question here, and it was just basically success versus failure. Can this be something that is judged on externally, or is it something that only we can judge whether something that we've done is a success or a failure?
I think in the truest sense, only you know whether you've won.
No, but it's very good thing, because it's the society would like to put us all in a pack, and society would love to mesmerize us with the fact that if we try to give our best, there are rewards that are external, and because all of us have been ingrained into this is something that is going to compound. You have a look. All of us have got children here. None of us in here are telling our kids, don't worry if you end up nothing. All right? Don't worry if you end up just wanting to sit out there and write poetry. All of us are telling our kids, do this. You need to win in the world. When you go in the classroom, try to be with the best in the class. Try to only pick friends that are... I mean, we talk to them in this kind of respect. So we already giving them the programs. And we already telling our kids from when they're born, this is how you need to really be mesmerized by the illusions of what's out there. No wonder... They may be a BMW, they may be actually a Volkswagen Combi, and we try to get them to get the speed of Ferraris, because Ferraris comes first, because Ferrari gets the reward, because Ferrari is what the world claps. So fame, success, respect, those are the things that we need to run after.
I think deep down, though, a fraud knows they're a fraud, or if you get a win that you know you didn't truly earn, you never really feel good about it. So in answer to your question, Meg, I think deep down, internally, success and failure is governed by how you feel after a certain event, regardless of what people are telling you. People tell me I do a good job and I know I haven't. There's no winning that.
I probably disagree with you, mate. Try and ask Lance Armstrong that question, and I'm not
but that's
sure
why
he's going to tell you the same thing.
Ask him if he felt like he really won.
Mate, he can tell you that he's actually won. You ask guys like him, narcissistic like Donald Trump, whether he's lost mate, he hasn't lost. They stole it from him.
I'm talking about your average human, not your psychopaths, right?
No.
So the reason,
however,
we chase the lights. Sorry, mate.
I like the bit where he talked a little bit about resentment, because that has been something that's been around with me for a while. And so when he wrote Consult Your Resentment, it's a revelatory emotion for all its pathology, because it's part of an evil triad: arrogance, deceit, and resentment. Do you know? And I thought, hold on,
No.
is there anything right? And to say, so he's driving me to one direction, and just like Meg was saying, suddenly in the next line he's sending you a totally different direction, and you're going, where is he going with this? You
I
know?
felt like the ball in the pinball machine. Like, like that's how I felt. In my head, I was just like, oh my God, like there's so much gold in there, but far out. It's like tiring to read.
What about the Old and the New Testament, people?
I turned off.
The New Testament.
The
There's one
old
bit on
God.
that, Thomas, that you said. It says, so you start with to wish your enemies well, at least in principle, although you may not means yet master such sentiment. And for me, that was a good thing to say, you know, that resentment that you hold, at least wish them well to start learning that process, because we have to, if we haven't done it before, we need to start somewhere. We need to start that process to start learning how to actually have attached sentiment to it.
He takes the whole thing back in the end to the very Stoic philosophy of being good.
Yeah.
And it all starts there. And when you be good and you wish the best for other people, even if they are your enemies, the more people you can actually wish the best for and to help succeed, even if you don't really like them, then the better off everyone will be. And that creates a world where everyone can be happy with where they're at.
It's everyone's interpretation of good, though, because even the people that do bad still convince themselves that they're doing good.
Yeah, no, it's always that's the fight between good and evil. Use your forces for good, not evil. But I think just back to the resentment thing for a while, he talks in there, which obviously resonated with me, about how should or shouldn't we speak up when we're not happy with something that's going on or when we've got something to say. Obviously, that's what we do on here. We try and speak up, but so many people don't. Either a resentful person is immature, in which case he or she should shut up, quit whining and get on with it, or there's tyranny afoot, in which case the person subjugated has the moral obligation to speak up. Why? Because the consequence of remaining silent is worse. Of course, it's easier in the moment to stay silent and avoid conflict, but in the long term, that's deadly. When you have something to say, silence is a lie and tyranny feeds on lies. And I think that's pretty relevant to what we're all going through now with these lockdowns and the inability of enough people to speak up to change what's going on.
I like to change it because we're going to come to that very soon in our Facebook Live. But I like the line where he says, life doesn't have a problem, you do.
Yeah.
And he says, if your life is not going well, perhaps it is your current knowledge that is insufficient, not life itself. Love it. I love it. But again, as I said, out of like 16 lines, that's the line I love. I mean, the other 15 lines I'm lost.
That's where he talks.
Probably next reading.
You have to read it again.
He talks just before it about too many of us just put it down. If we're not happy with where we are, so we put it down to life shit and then you die, or life's a bitch and then you die, or whatever one of those lines you want to use. So the bit before that, what Thomas read, is before your crisis impels you to that hideous conclusion, maybe consider the fact that it might be a you problem, which is, we were talking yesterday, TL, some people it'll never, ever, ever be a you problem. Ever, ever. It's just there's always something.
It's the blame game.
And he talks in there about you actually have to want your life to be better, not just say, I wish I had a better life, because you can verbalize that and say, I want this and I want big things but deep down, if you actually don't want better for yourself, if it's actually too hard to change, the pain of change is harder than the pain of staying the same, then people will, and they'll keep repeating the same cycle, and you can't help everyone. Oh, shit. I accidentally opened up on that page. This will only work, however, if you genuinely want your life to improve.
Yes, beautiful, eh?
You can't fool your implicit perceptual structures, not even a bit. They aim you wherever you point them. To retool, to take stock, to aim somewhere better, you have to think it through bottom to top. And then it says, because making life better means adopting a lot of responsibility, and that takes more effort and care than living stupidly in pain and remaining arrogant, deceitful, and resentful. So there are those people who, no matter how often they tell you they want to change or they're going to change, it's just too easy for them to stay in the shit fight that they're in.
So come on, guys. Someone has to be able to help me. There's a four of us here. What's this analogy between New Testament and Old Testament? What is this?
One's old.
I asked a question. You three need to answer that.
No, I'm tapping out because at first he says people didn't like the Old Testament God, but then I'm like, Jesus Christ, here
I
we
think
go. And
Chris
then
is-
The Old Testament God was fury and might and wrath, and he's going to come over and wipe out the infidels and all this bullshit. And the New Testament God was loving and kind and giving and and whatever.
But then
and
three pages later, he says, who can blame the Old Testament God? Do we blame a hungry lion when it's wreaking havoc? I'm going, what are you talking about, man? We're not living in the jungle where hungry lions are stealing our children. So he says we should fear the Old Testament God and prefer the New Testament God, but then says we all fall back to believing in the Old Testament God because that's the only way life can continue with discipline and fear of consequences. And
no, he's talking about our behavior. He's talking about our behavior. That sometimes, like some people don't like what their bosses have, and they get angry, they get envious, they do all and they get down to a lot of silly acts. And they do silly things, and that's the difference between yin and yang. I'd say that's the New and Old Testament.
Let me ask you this. So the whole chapter is about not comparing yourself, but I believe there is a time where comparison is required if you're actually trying to get somewhere. When might that be?
Get where somewhere?
Well, we say don't compare yourself to anybody else and only compare yourself to yourself. But we then, conversely, we say success leaves clues. So if you're trying to get somewhere, find someone who's already done it and follow what they've done, essentially. Isn't that a form of comparison?
But
they're asking you to walk in their footprints, not compare yourself to them, but
compare what they've done to what you've done, and you want to get from here to here.
Yeah.
Is that comparison?
Follow what they've done, not to compare yourself to them, but to follow in their footsteps.
But you have to compare yourself to them to make an accurate assessment of where you're at.
But what was Megan's line earlier? That sometimes winnings doesn't mean what?
There was, but there was also another line that said, he was talking about games, and he said the games that you are playing are so specific to you that comparison to others is simply inappropriate. And I think to answer what you were saying, Cam, I don't necessarily think it's a comparison. Like, let's say there's a salesperson that's just starting out, and let's say there's someone that's been in the industry for 5 years. You can't necessarily be like comparing yourself to them and say, well, I want what they've got now. You go, okay, how did they get to what they've got now? And what do I have to do now to get there? So
isn't that a form of comparison then?
Maybe it's a comparison. Maybe it's a coaching, mentoring kind of relationship that you're wanting advice from that person on. Well, what did you do when you started out? Like, how can I learn from what you did to get there?
Yeah, I just don't want people to fall into the trap of never looking at anybody else and being it doesn't matter what they're doing, because in some instances, we talk about salespeople.
Yeah.
In some instances, it's important to look at what they've done and follow it, not look at where they are, but look at what they did. And I believe that's a form of comparison.
Listen, if you are a person running the company, that's what you want to do, which is to repeat that illusion, that comparison to the external world is the only mean to know whether they're advancing or not. Mm-hmm. If you are someone who is more altruistic and know that when someone works for you, he or she is not just there for skill, but also for the betterment of their own soul, then you have the responsibility not only to help them succeed by that barometer that is out there, but also by the internal barometers. So it's not as easy, success leaves clue. That doesn't mean success as in like, I'm going to be the best. Success could be, I know more about myself today and how it works, how I work versus who I was about 2 months ago. That is success. And that success leaves clues, because when you know how to do that, you can now sit down with someone who is in need of that and guide them there. And so I think we're gonna have to really take that way. Is that people have to really take a stop at some stage and ask themselves the first question: who am I? What am I made? What makes me tick? What are my weaknesses? Then they can have a look at what is it that they want, rather than be mesmerized by what the other guys got and then try and have that. And then if they can't have it, envy is the result, jealousy is the result, and trying to sabotage them is the consequence of the actions. I think that's where we're going wrong.
I think with the comparison thing, Cam, I think there's always going to be some form of comparison in the world, regardless of the way you look at it. There will always be comparison. But I think what we're trying to get at, what he's trying to get at on this is, yes, have the comparison to maybe wanting to strive or achieve something, but don't compare your results with someone else's results. Just compare how much you did for yourself that day. But it comes down to, I think it's a bit tricky, and it's not an easy answer. What Meg asked before is, how do you know if you've done a good job? Because some people need a pat on the back, some people just intrinsically know they've done a good job. I think, again, it comes down to a lot of our upbringing and how sort of we were dealt with as kids that sort of reinforce that behavior. But yeah, you know if you're lying to yourself, Cam, but sometimes you know you've done a good job and you don't get the kudos for it. And I think that builds character as well.
Yeah, I just want to explore whether there was ever a time that comparison is good, because we're sitting here saying how bad it is. But
maybe there's a difference. Like, there's obviously comparison in a positive way, but then there's comparison with jealousy, there's comparison with blame. Like, I think there's a lot that comes into the word comparison that like you can have a positive connotation or a negative connotation. You could look at something and compare it and just look at it on face value, but the further you, I think, the demons and how people interpret it.
I think it depends on whether you're winning or not. So when I compare myself to the wines that you three bring every week, I feel bloody good about myself, and that's a good
what about the
comparison.
internal comparison? Because comparison has to be there, because we're doing external and internal comparison.
Well, that's what
compare.
The whole idea is to internally compare yourself to who you were yesterday. That's his whole point.
So it has to be, but there has to be a comparison. To improve, there has to be comparison.
Now,
we can't avoid that.
We all have children. Do we compare them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We compare them?
Yeah.
So are you really going to your daughter and saying, mate, at this age, really, John was doing way better?
No, you're not talking to them, but you have that conversation with yourself.
No, because I don't. I as a parent, I make zero comparison, because I go, they're unique. Now, they've been given to me. My role now as a parent is to find all their unique talent. That is my role. And sometimes they won't see it. I mean, I really wished, and maybe it's a cop-out, I really wish my parents did that for me, is that they really helped me find my user manual before I turned 18. And help me use this user manual of mine. You know, I think that is the thing that we need to look at. So we would never say to one of our kids, mate, you're stupid, have a look, your sister's more intelligent than you. We wouldn't do it. So we may look, we may see something, but we don't use that comparison. We want them to have to reach their best. And I think this is one of the line I like in his last line in that chapter is, attend to the day, but aim at the highest good. Right? And if you are working in some place and you only know that you're doing good because you're getting some kudos or a pat on the back, I'm sorry, slavery hasn't ended for you. You are just a prisoner to the external feedback. The world, as long as it gives you feedback, it will keep you enchained. And that's hence you have to take the time to sit down and say, no, I don't need to live a world of illusion. So second question I want to ask you, the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, both of them probably got zilch to their name. Do you think they need to compare themselves?
Well, Well, if they do, they win because they're the head of what they do.
I don't think that they wouldn't need. Do you think that she would go to New York and stand beside Donald Trump and say, "Oh man, you're rich, you got so much money, and I'm a nobody"?
No. But that's not what fulfills. It depends what if she's not chasing money. So maybe if she was chasing money, she would.
And so what you're saying is that, have a look, I'm taking two extremes here.
Yeah, I know. That's what.
And in both and in the extreme of poverty, of things that neither of all of us here would want to be in. And yet that's a person who needs zero comparison, who's chasing the best of herself, the best version of herself, right, in order to fulfill some greater good. That's all. And this is why it's a tough book, but I think that, man, he's going deep in a lot of stuff. It's almost like you think you understand certain way, and then suddenly he throws you a totally different way. I think I'm starting to think that maybe we need to smoke something in order to really read this book properly.
Definitely not.
Weed and wisdom.
Weed and wisdom.
I've already got the domain name, mate. So don't worry.
I was worried what you were going to say then.
It's definitely it's not nighttime reading just before you go to bed. A couple of times I've tried to read it at night, and I've just gone, "What am I doing to myself?" Yeah, put it down.
Well, anyway, let's stop it. We'll catch up for
See you soon.
5. Come on, another few to go. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Yeah.
Bye.